Thanks so much for being here. We're really excited to see all of you. Day one at Quirks. It's beautiful here in Chicago today. See some wonderful familiar faces out there, so that's awesome. For anyone I don't know, I'm Katy Emerson, Executive Vice President of Customer Success at Suzy. And today we're going to be exploring something that has been evolving quickly in our industry, and that's conversational research. So we all know the world of insights is shifting really fast. And this session is really about how we can meet consumers where they are with authenticity, nuance, and a little help from AI. We'll dig into what we learned through a recent study on modern soda and how the way we ask questions can dramatically change the answers that we get. So let's get right into it. So before we dive in, just a quick level set on who Suzy is for those who might not be as familiar. But at Suzy, we're really focused on 4 key things. And those things are quality, connectivity, efficiency, and expertise. We've built the platform that brings together quant and qual in a single place. And we do that through using our own proprietary audience so that we can move fast without sacrificing rigor. It's tech-powered, but very insight-led, and that's where conversational research really starts to shine. Thanks for coming to the front row. Love it. All right, so today I'm going to introduce you to our latest methodology, and that's Suzy Speaks. I promise to not spend the next 30 minutes pitching you our tech, so don't worry. I'm going to take you through the results of a recent research study that we conducted about a very timely topic for folks in the food and beverage space. In order to understand the nuances of the study, though, I do want to give you just a quick 15-second rundown of what Suzy Speaks is. It is our new AI-moderated voice technology. Think of it as qualitative depth with quantitative scale. And here's how it works. Respondents record answers and I'm holding a mobile phone in case you're wondering what I'm doing with my hand here, in their own voice in a very natural way. And instead of waiting days or even weeks for a transcript and then manually coding everything, our AI jumps in immediately, capturing sentiment, themes, nuances, all in real time. So in this study, we used Suzy Speaks, and we talked to over 100 respondents about the modern soda category. Why this matters. We're not just asking people what they think, we're learning why they think it. And that subtle shift really unlocks a much richer layer of insight, especially when you're working in a space that's full of emotion and lifestyle choices and evolving behaviors. Okay, so why modern soda? We picked this category because it's super hot, right? It's really fascinating space between indulgence and wellness, and major brands like Coke, Pepsi, and a lot of others are really getting into the game. And we've got brands like Poppy and Olipop here, and now Liquid Death, who are positioning themselves as healthy and fun, as well as functional alternatives to traditional sodas. There's countless challenger brands rising in this area as well. And so consumers are intrigued, but the behavior behind trial, repeat, and loyalty is still very murky. So this study was really about understanding that adoption curve. What gets someone to pick up a modern soda? What keeps them coming back? Where does health messaging break through, and where is it falling flat? So we explored flavor, packaging, retail behavior, and competitive switching. And what we found is that the why behind trial is way more layered than any checkbox in a survey will tell you. So let's talk about what we set out to learn. So we had 5 core goals when we set this up. 1, we wanted to understand adoption. What gets someone to try a modern soda? What makes them stick? We also wanted to explore retail behavior, how people shop the category and what catches their attention. Flavor and functional claims, which ingredients and benefits matter most. Competitive positioning as far as what could actually pull a traditional soda drinker away from their tried and true favorites. And finally, brand choice. Who's winning and why? And all of this was approached with one mindset. Let's go beyond what people say in a structured survey and really dig into what motivates that behavior, especially when they are speaking freely. So for the sake of time today, we're just going to focus on what we learned from the first 3. And so that's consumer adoption, retail behavior, and then flavor and functional claims. Okay, to start, so here's some quick context on the audience. These aren't super heavy soda drinkers. 65% of them say that they buy carbonated drinks just 1 to 3 times per month. So we're talking moderate purchasers here. So what stood out is that nearly half of respondents had tried modern soda, which is a pretty high number given how new the category is. But when we asked why they tried it, the real gold came in the voice data that we got. So yes, structured questions told us things like, it's healthier, or I was curious, but the open-ended voice response really gave us so much texture. And the role of marketing, social influence, impulse purchase, there's so much going on beyond that initial trial moment that just really helps to frame up everything here. This slide really sums up why the methodology matters. So on the left, we have the very structured response data. Okay, so this is from the quant survey. It's clean, it's easy to digest, but it is a bit shallow, right? And then on the right-hand side, that's the synthesis from our voice transcripts. Now we're seeing a bit more about the full story. 34% mentioned marketing and promotions. 32% said it was a friend or an influencer recommendation. 26 talked about health, but not just in like a generic, it's healthy way. It was really about diabetes prevention, avoiding sugar crashes, gut health. That level of nuance just doesn't show up when you run straight quantitative. And it's what makes layering in voice so very compelling and very powerful, especially when you're trying to understand what's behind the behaviors. So here we have the real reasons people are trying modern sodas. And marketing and promo actually topped the list at 34%. And that wasn't even, I just want to call this out, it wasn't even a structured response option. People remembered the ads, the sales, they remembered BOGO deals, and that just goes to show how influential promotional touch points really are for the consumer. And you heard that come through in the voice and what they shared with us. Social influence was next. Friends, family, TikTok, structured questions caught a bit of this, but the voice response really made it clear that this influence is so much stronger when people talk freely. Curiosity and novelty came in at a close third, then followed by health motivations, flavor experience, and product placement. Bottom line here, though, is that consumers are more layered than, again, that just checkbox in a quantitative survey. So voice really lets us hear what's behind their choices and what's driving that. Okay, so let's dig in now into the curiosity and novelty. And this one was really fun. So a lot of people said that they saw a cool flavor and decided to try it. So like something like watermelon lime or pineapple ginger. And one person literally said, it sounded fun, that's it. That was enough for me to buy it, right? So what's important here is that the flavor itself was the hook, but it only worked because the packaging made it pop and the experience felt very, very low risk in this type of category. So it's not just about being the healthiest or most functional. Sometimes it's just about being different and exciting, especially in a category that is historically a lot of the sameness. So if anyone in the room works in the space, definitely don't sleep on design and don't be afraid of more chaos packaging. Really lean into that novelty. It definitely drives action. Another driver that came through loud and clear was health and wellness. And again, the nuance here really matters. So on the structured side of things, 27% of consumers said that they tried modern soda because it had less sugar. But when we looked at the voice data, it wasn't just about being healthy. People chose products for personal health-related reasons, and they were happy to share that. One person actually said they were pre-diabetic and were specifically seeking lower sugar options. Someone else talked about wanting a guilt-free treat. And for brands, that means your claims can't be fluff, right? So you've got to be clear, credible, and specific. Words like prebiotics or fiber, low glycemic, they work if they're meaningful and true for the consumer. Okay, so let's now talk about flavor, because at the end of the day, flavor is king. And even the most functional product won't make it if the flavor doesn't deliver. And that came up again and again in the responses. People told us that they were drawn to really bold and exotic flavors or different flavor profiles. So things that were like citrus blends or spicy, fruity combinations, that really got consumers' attention. But they also said, if it tastes weird, I'm not buying it again. And so that's where modern sodas are missing the mark, is they sometimes can over-index on health and forget that soda really is a treat that needs to be enjoyable and it has to taste good. So the insight here is pretty simple. Flavor innovation gets you the trial, but flavor consistency is what's really going to win you and earn you that loyalty. Okay, so speaking of consistency, people aren't judging flavor on the first try. They're paying attention to whether it's the same experience every time. And one respondent actually said, every can tastes exactly how I expected, no weird aftertaste or variation. And that kind of reliability really builds trust. And then we have authentic benefits too. So people saying things like, I feel exploded, I don't get that afternoon crash anymore. And that's the gold standard for any wellness brand. Not only do they believe your claims, but they're feeling the results. And that's what keeps them coming back, and that's what keeps them or gets them to pay that premium. Okay, so let's bring this all together. What does it mean for brands and retailers? A few very clear takeaways. First, amplify your marketing across channels. TV, TikTok, shelf talkers, all of it matters. And second, lead with flavor and novelty. Consumers are looking to break the routine. Give them a reason to try you. Third, your own health positioning. Own your health positioning, and do that with credibility. So buzzwords are truly everywhere, but be very clear, and that trustworthiness will come through. And finally, deliver consistent quality, taste, texture, and even visual branding. And in other words, you need to surprise them once and satisfy them every single time. All right, so let's talk about how we used Suzy Speaks to uncover how shoppers are actually discovering modern soda in store. So 25% of the consumers said that they intentionally browse the healthy drinks or specialty aisles. And that may not seem huge, but that group is actively looking to discover something new. What stood out? And it's truly the placement that matters. One respondent said, if it's not in the organic section, I might not even see it. I mentioned packaging earlier in the presentation, and that theme came up again quite a bit during this line of questioning. So multiple people said bold colors, crisp design made them stop and pick up the can, even if they weren't planning to buy a soda at all. So for brands, getting that prime real estate in the healthy aisle really does matter. But your packaging has to do the heavy lifting, and it's got to communicate both the health and the flavor at a glance. All right, now once they pick it up, what actually closes the sale? People want to know two things, and they want to know them fast. The two key things that we learned about in the key drivers section of this presentation is what's healthy about it and what does it taste like. So that's it. If your packaging or signage can answer those two key questions, you've got a much better shot at getting that product into the basket. Descriptors like probiotic infused or pineapple ginger did really well. Short, punchy, clear. But here's the real kicker, okay? Some consumers admitted that they're not totally sure what things like prebiotic even mean. They just know that it sounds good, right? The education is important, but overcomplicating that can really backfire. So bottom line, simple, benefit-forward language really wins. All right, well-reduced sugar or zero sugar formulations attract attention, and unpleasant or overly artificial taste really can deter those repeat purchasers. So health-forward extras, things like probiotics and lower sugar formulations can justify premium pricing, but only if the overall taste experience can hold up. So how do we act on what we've learned here, right? First, make your health claims super simple, super clear. Don't bury the benefits in fine print. Put things like less sugar or supports digestion front and center. Second, be transparent. Consumers are savvy, right? If it tastes weird, they won't blame the sweetener. They're going to blame the brand. And test your formulas and taste until the taste holds up. Third, use functional ingredients to justify a premium pricing. If you're offering real benefits and a better experience, consumers are going to be willing to pay for it. And lastly, remember this function opens the door, right? So flavor and mouthfeel decide if they stay in the room. Okay, I have been talking for, 15, 17 minutes, something like that. I really want to bring this to life for you all, so I'd love for you to hear it from consumers. And so everybody, like hands in the air, fingers crossed that like the voice actually works. But let's hear from Suzy Speaks.
Usually I'll purchase a carbonated beverage if I need some type of pick-me-up or if I want to celebrate something. It's more of something fun to drink versus something that, say, I need like water or like an electrolyte drink.
I'm not a big alcohol drinker, so I do try to drink carbonated beverage instead of a lot of alcohol.
I tried them last summer, and I tried them because once again I saw it on TikTok. It was a lot of different content creators promoting both Poppy and Ollie.
So I first tried modern soda brand, I would say within the past 2 years, just TV ads from brands such as Poppy wanting to reinvent the wheel of how you think about soda. Those ads really stuck to me, and that's what made me ultimately look it up in stores and purchase one for the first time.
I'm mostly a cola person. So a good flavor would persuade me to switch to a modern soda. I'd also need that carbonation. Otherwise, it's not a soda.
Not a soda. All right, so how did using
Usually I'll purchase a carbonated beverage if I need some type of pick-me-up or if I want to celebrate.
There we go. Okay. So how did using AI moderated voice driven technology for this project instead of just a standard survey really enrich our insights? It's all about that emotional depth, right? So voice gives us that access to the sentiment, to the tone and the personal context that a typed open end just can't capture, right? And so one respondent said, they went a level deeper. They said it helps my acid reflux when nothing else worked. And another said, I'm diabetic, so I choose low sugar options for safety. And these aren't just reasons, they're real stories from consumers, and they carry a lot of emotion along with them. And that emotional layer can really be the difference between a message that resonates and one that falls flat. Plus, voice lets people explain themselves without being boxed into a set of answers. So that opens the door for themes and insights that you maybe didn't even think about when you were writing your questionnaire, which, let's be honest, is every researcher's dream, right? So let's break this down a bit. Here's what Suzy Speaks unlocks. Nuance detection. We capture emotion, emphasis, hesitation. It's not just what they say, but really truly how they say it. Speed also being a factor. So you're not waiting on transcripts, you're not having to do the manual coding, you're not having to wait for interviews to be scheduled and people not to show up. The AI does all that heavy lift for us, and they do it really quickly. Consumer-led narrative, too, is respondents are leading the way with the discussion. So we get insights that matter to them, not just what we think to ask. There's also an authentic connection too, so it feels a lot more human. People are open to sharing a lot more than they would have been previously. More honest, and that authenticity then builds trust in the data. And we're seeing this time and time again when voice uncovers insights that are a lot more layered, more real, and a lot more actionable. And this matters because it enables you, my research experts in the room, to get real insights. You can trust the feedback, and the moderator digs into the why behind the what. And I mentioned this at the beginning of the session as well, but it is truly a very rich qual research with the quant scale that you get. So we're seeing more and more of our testing that consumers are spending time with these surveys. I think we had this hypothesis when we first launched this at the end of February that we would probably have like 10-minute conversations with consumers. But what we're finding is that they're sticking around. They're giving us such rich open ends and rich verbatims. They're talking and they're open to talking with us for 15, 20 minutes, which just adds to the layer of depth that we're getting. And that's across most topics. All right, so what this finally means for you all. Oops, sorry guys. All right, it's really about a mindset shift. Historically, a lot of our research has been about claims, validation, do they believe it? Can they recall it? Do they associate it with your brand? But this technology really helps us go deeper into meaning validation. So what does it mean to them personally? What emotion does this tap into, and what moment in their life is it connected to? So it's not just that what, it really truly is the why. And when you understand that emotional context and the behavior triggers, you're not just testing messages, you're building brands with real resonance, and that's truly what is the next future and frontier of insights. So with that, it is a wrap on the deck, but I wanted to just thank you all for being here, and also open it up for any questions that you might have. I see you back there. I'm sorry, I had a hard time hearing. Do we have a microphone, or? I think the question was around nostalgic brands.
Yes. Would this research recommend they make some of those bold moves, or do they need to sort of stay in their sort of classic way, the packaging, branding? Like, how far should they go to sort of stand out? If there's really a lot of impulse based on some of the boldness, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure if we dug into that nostalgia aspect of it, but we can take a look at the data if you wanted to stop by. Yeah, great question. Yes?
I'm curious what the responder experience is like. Are they just sitting there talking to what?
So we have our own proprietary audience called CrowdTap. And so it's an app that consumers use on their phone that they would tap into, and they'll know that they're going into a voice activation or a voice experience. And so they will, opt into that, and then they'll just talk into their phones. So it's no video in this case. We do have a video action on Suzy as well, but this is totally different and totally separate from that. And what we found is, again, I think I always share this story. My 14-year-old niece, I had her get onto CrowdTap because we always need more Gen Z talking about beauty and everything else that they purchase. And I remember her saying to me, she was like, "Ew, Aunt Katy, it's like a survey. This was so boring." And that is truly not just the 14-year-olds, but it's a lot of people who no longer want to sit and type their answers. They want to talk. They're used to talking into their phones. And so it's just them sharing their voice. And then the AI moderation continues to prompt, continues to move through the discussion guide, and they continue to have those conversations.
Is that an AI voice, or is that just text that's generated that they're responding to? From the respondent standpoint, are they being talked to, or are they reading and then replying to?
It can be both. So in this case, I think it's a text prompt, and then they speak back into their phones, and we get their voice. Yep. Yep.
So I'm thinking more about a survey. You could get a lot of people to answer questions pretty quickly, and it could be quite high. For something like this, what's a good number of respondents to get you this kind of insight?
Yeah, we've been playing around with just N of 100 and finding that we are getting really rich feedback and enough to help fuel the insights within the research. Yes?
Have you used it with taking the healthcare industry with patients or doctors?
So we launched private beta at the end of February. And so we're just about a month and a few days in here, but it is wonderful for, one, hard to reach audiences and sensitive topics, for sure. I do believe that it is HIPAA compliant, but don't quote me on that because I want to make sure that I'm giving the right answer. But it is wonderful for that type of contact. The other thing that I think that we notice too is sometimes with, I don't want to offend anybody, but if it's a boring category, so I don't where you lose me is like on insurance, is something like that just doesn't float my boat. But something like that is actually pretty interesting because we get people that actually like be very passionate talking about their insurance. And so that's where you start to get a lot of richness. That's just one example. Yeah, great questions. Any others? Yes. Yeah, so the question was, can you give them something to respond to? So the methodologies on this, even though Suzy Speaks is its own methodologies, the use cases are really very wide. And so you absolutely could give them STIM. That could be a static image. It could be a video. It could be something else. We've talked about doing this in home usage testing. If you wanted to send the consumer a product and actually have them respond to their usage occasions with it. So it really, there's really no like limits right now on some of the use cases that we're open to testing and trialing with this. Yeah.
We have spent the time with it, but can Suzy Speaks be integrated into a traditional quant survey?
Yes, it can. Yeah, so a lot of the testing that we're doing is actually like side-by-side testing too. So there is a quant component with a Suzy Speaks overlay. Yep. Exactly. Yep. Yep, great question. Yes.
Is it do like iterative editions of a survey? So let's say you've tested an initiative or exploring. I guess my question is it generally more for exploring, or can it be also used for validation? Let's say there's concept A, concept B, but down the road you want to test concept C. If a lot of the metrics are being, if I understand it correctly, like categorized by the AI, is it able to then stick to the parameters of a previous study to then see how this compares on the same lines, or is it creating a new set each time based on the respondents' input?
Yeah, so iterative research is a huge tentpole for Suzy. And so it can be everything from that, exploration, foundational knowledge, all the way into a lot of iterative research over time. I think as far as like our private beta, I don't think we've like tested and then retested, but we absolutely could do that. Yeah, awesome. All right, you guys are asking amazing questions, so I'm glad I went through it quickly. That's it for me, really. So just a huge thank you. And feel free to stop by booth 300. We're right kind of in the front when you walk through. We'd love to meet more of you and talk about Suzy Speaks a little bit more, answer some more questions. So thanks again. Have a wonderful day.